Good morning. I've seen a whole bunch of names join the room, which is thank you very much for coming to today's alumni panel. The purpose of today's panel is to talk with some of the illustrious alumni from the TTSM course, or as it's previously been known, the technical production course before that. I think even at one point it was the production course, but it's effectively the same course through NIDA that's existed for almost since NIDA began. What we're going to be doing today is we've got a panel of 4 graduates from the course, 4 alumni. We're going to speak to them about their careers. It's going to be an opportunity to sort of hear about the diversity of careers that sort of come out of this course, where people go, but also for you as potential applicants or potential students to ask questions about sort of where your career might go and sort of things that you can expect. I've briefed all of these panelists to be open and honest about what it means to have been a NIDA student and then what it means to be a NIDA graduate. And I hope that we'll have a really sort of interesting and constructive conversation today. I'm going to start by just sort of introducing our 4 panelists. I'll get them to say hello. So so that way you'll get a sense of who they are. And then I'm going to throw to each panelist and ask a bit about their career. But just as introductions, we have with us today Georgia Gilbert.
Hi.
Alex Duffy.
Hello.
Julian Starr.
Hello.
And Trudy Dalgleish.
Hello.
Hello. So I think I'm just going to start by throwing to Trudy first. Trudy, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and your career post-NIDA?
Well, hi, my name's Trudy. I'm a lighting designer. So I design lights for ballets, operas, big musicals, ceremonies all around the world. I graduated from NIDA a very long time ago. And I was in theatre for about a year or 2 and then decided I would move to rock and roll for 10 years. So I moved to the Sydney Entertainment Centre and was their head electrician for 10 years. During that time, moving lights came out for the first time. So I was very, very lucky to be on new technology at that time. I bought, then I decided I'd go back to theatre because I do love theatre, and bought moving lights into musical theatre in Australia. Yeah, so that's basically me. I'll light anything. I can light sports events, everything, circus, ice skating. Yeah, I've lit everything.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trudy. Julian, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and your career to date?
Yes, hello, my name is Julian Starr and I'm a sound designer and composer, and I work mainly in theatre and big large-scale events, as well as associate work throughout the UK and Europe. I left NIDA at the end of 2017 and I jumped ship and I went over into the UK, where I've worked on stuff from the National Theatre to the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo to designing on the West End and composing on the West End, as well as throughout all the fringe venues, as well as working throughout Europe, where I mainly work through Germany, Vienna, as well as in Czech Republic in a 17th century castle, which is always fun. And then also I've done the bits and pieces throughout Sydney as well as in Brisbane. So yes, that's a bit about me, galloping around the world as well.
Okay, Georgia, would you like to introduce yourself and a little bit about your career?
I finished NIDA also a little while ago now, and as soon as I finished, did a couple of events to have some work, and then went to Sydney Theatre Company, where I stayed for quite a bit of time, finally becoming head of stage management there. And we toured a lot of wonderful shows, both here and in the States and Europe. A few of those you were on, Graham, with us as well. And now I'm making the move into film and television. So I'm working at Easy Tiger with Ian Colley, and also working on a feature with Dirty Films, Kate Blanchett and Andrew Upton's company.
Thank you, Georgia. Alex.
Hello, yes. I am a stage manager on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child currently. I finished in 2011 at NIDA and then found myself in the musical theatre world as a ASM and progressed through there and been lucky enough to travel across up into Asia and around the country for the last several years. And yeah, managing to juggle life and family, and it's all been a bit of a whirlwind, but here we are.
So
You've got a newborn, is that right, Alex?
Yeah, he's 6 days old.
Amazing.
Congratulations, Alex. It's wonderful. So you get a sense from the four panelists just how diverse their careers are, just in that introduction. As this panel continues, I'd encourage anyone who has questions in the audience to just pop the questions into the chat, and we'll sort of come to those questions as we can. I have some prepared questions, though, that I'm going to ask along the way, just to kind of give you a bit of a better sense of, what the NIDA experience may have been like for our panelists, but also what the careers would have been like. My first question, and at this point onwards, any of you can jump in at any point, but what was the most important thing that you learnt whilst doing the NIDA course?
I think for me, it was collaboration. It was learning to work with other people really, really closely. Also, an incredible hard work ethic. I think is what you get from NIDA. It's incredibly long hours. You have to really be passionate and love doing it to be able to do it. But yeah, collaboration, but also lots of fun as well. Otherwise, why would you do it?
I think that's the main thing I got from NIDA as well, Trudy, is just the work ethic of you just keep going and going and going, and you complete every task. You don't leave anything half-assed or just full commitment. Yeah.
I think as well, what's interesting about this course is it's not a course where you're going in and studying one subject. You're studying multiple subjects, and to do this course over 3 years, you have to be so open-minded, and you might not like some course or some subject, but still you need to understand and have that that love for it as well, because when you're out in the industry, you understand what that other person's doing or trying to achieve whilst you're in tech or putting on a show. So that's one of the great benefits of this course that I took away for myself.
I agree. I think that's a standout for me. That what really sets apart NIDA from other training platforms. Over the years, a lot of students and sort of aspiring technical production technicians have come to me and said, what should I do? And the reason that NIDA stands out for me is not just that it's where I went, but it's because it gives you a cross-section of foundation learning about a lot of departments that you just need to be successful and to communicate with everyone. And it's all about communication and collaboration.
In my previous course talk that I did, or was broadcast earlier this morning, I spoke about the NIDA community and the fact that the NIDA community is very strong and actually can play a very large part in practitioners' careers once they leave NIDA. How important has the NIDA community been to each of you after graduation? How connected have you remained to NIDA or to your peers that you worked through NIDA with and those sort of things?
Well, you end up working with a lot of them. So, if your timing is, such that you get the chance to work with them, you actually end up working, continuing through with the people that you're there with, not only in your class, but with your in the acting courses or the design courses. So it's really important to nourish those relationships at uni and at NIDA, so you can sort of springboard from there and use them out in the world. I work with some people in my team that I went to uni with, and it's just great. There is that real sense of we've both been through the same things. We get what we've come from, which is always helpful, I find.
Yeah, it's like you've been through the war.
I was going to say the trenches.
Yeah, it's very true. I actually am employed by a lot of people who were my classmates at NIDA who now are general managers of theatre companies, and so there's this huge web of your classmates and other alumni, and I find I get a lot of work that way as well.
I think that's right. And then also, as people have given you a leg up, you turn around and give a leg up to the people coming through. So it's
I do actually
Yeah,
I do a bit of mentoring for NIDA students. So Graham sometimes gets me in to mentor a student through a lighting design. That's great. Sometimes I take those graduates. I've got one at the moment, Lockie, who's actually my board operator on Shrek at the present moment. So that leads to employment for them if they're really good and they've made, you know, a mark on me. I'll employ them once they graduate, which is great.
Which I think touches on what Graham might get to later, is the secondment sort of process, and how there's this really wonderfully woven process where you get in your third year to go and work with some existing practitioners, and you get sort of, not to use the word network in a gross business way, but you get the chance to meet people that are currently working and sort of show them how you are. And that's a platform that NIDA does really well, I think. And that's how I got my start, and that's paved a career for me. And I think it's the same for a lot of students. And it's not to say that you can't get that elsewhere, but you need that kind of in, and NIDA has that reputation to get that in for you. And you're already halfway there because you've got that NIDA background.
100%. That's how I got my start at Sydney Theatre Companies, because I was desperate to do a secondment there. And they can be quite difficult to get sometimes, but once you're in there and you've shown that you can do it, I then got a job the next season. So that's how I got started. I think the secondment, like the third year, is almost the most important thing for me for the whole course. You know, it's that full professional immersion and, as you say, it's sort of network building in a good way.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask, you know, I know that some of you have been out of NIDA for quite a while, but what do you remember most about your time at NIDA?
I think the shows.
Yeah.
The classroom antics, so that might not be the right answer for this forum.
I think we should be open and honest.
The classroom dynamic is actually one of the most memorable things for me. That was a hoot. I mean, you meet such an eclectic bunch of people, but you can become so close-knit because you're sort of collaborators for 3 years. I love that part. That was really great. It was hard, to be fair, because it's like you're with a family of 20 for 3 years. But, you know.
Yeah, I think that the lifelong friends that you make, you know, out of your classmates, you know, I can count at least 6 really, really good friends from my class. And you know, that's over 30 years in the industry and we're all still really, really close. So I think that's the biggest thing, the camaraderie and the friendship.
Yeah. I was also going to say, in regards to the friendships as well, you know, you walk away and, you know, you have a select great friendships who you still hold on to this day. But I was also going to say, because I'm probably the youngest graduate on the panel at the moment, and
how dare you?
What I was going to say is it's a lot of projects what you do, and that is, you know, working with all the other cohorts from acting to directing to writing, and you make, you know, great friendships from there, and you make a great network, and as we've just stated before, you know, you walk away knowing some great people. I'm still in close contact with the director who now lives in New York, so it's all of that, which is just a fantastic thing what you walk away with from this course over 3 years.
I also now with all COVID and this very weird time that we're living, it's nice to just have people that you've known for that long, that you started your careers with, everyone sort of checking in on each other in a time that could be quite lonely otherwise.
Yes.
I also think, as Alex said too, you know, the skill set that you learn, having to do every department. I mean, I always wanted to be a lighting designer, but I now know how to sew on a button and, you know, put Velcro on stuff or make a prop. You know, those skills also I still use every day.
Which, for people that want to do stage management, you need that stuff. Like, that is gold. That's what makes you stand out on a bit of paper or on a really quick interview. That foundation, for me, is a massive asset. It's a really important skill, I think. And I think also for NIDA, the facilities, you know, they're also just huge. So there's massive theatres, there's small stuff, there's unique stuff. I'm now in Melbourne and kind of spent some time at some Melbourne-based universities, and they haven't got that same scale that NIDA can offer. And that's really important, because when you do 3 years of uni and then go out and try and get a job, if it's the first time you've walked into a huge proscenium arch theatre, that's a bit overwhelming. I think. So I would say that NIDA's facilities are world-class for a reason.
That's also more to what we were talking about before about the network, is that when you're hiring people as a graduate, you know their training. So you know what they've had to experience, the coverage that the course gives them. So it's a known element, so you can they're going to tick every box you need them to tick.
I agree.
Coming from NIDA before the new buildings, though, I really, I think it comes down to the nitty gritty. If it's the people and it's the course, it doesn't. We were in 10 sheds making theatre in, 10 sheds of 50 people, and we still had great graduates and a great understanding of theatre. So, yeah, I think it's just embellishment on the actual, nature of the course. Really, is new big buildings and stuff.
And what's interesting, and I think you said as well, Trudy, in regards to, working hard, and that's what you will do at NIDA, but it also gives you a huge amount of confidence. Like for me, when I finished NIDA, I didn't hang around Australia. I jumped on the flights and started making a name over in the UK. And I think for not doing the 3 years, I would not be able to do that and, make my name over internationally. So that's one of the benefits. What you will walk away from doing a course like that, you will have the confidence, you will have the skill set, and whatever is thrown at you, you won't run away. You will be able to do the job.
Just picking up on something that Georgia said, all of you have either been in positions where you're either collaborating with other people or, in fact, employing other people as well. When you're approaching those things, what does it mean when you see that someone's a NIDA graduate? Like, what does that say to you?
Just as I was saying, you know their training, you know that they've had a completely rounded education, and they've had to do big shows, they've had to go through it all, and so and it's standardized. Like that they're also going to be pushed, and sometimes pushed to a point of exhaustion, or they've got the chops, really, I think.
Yeah, they've been forged. I always think they've been battered and bashed and forged, and
and that they're going to be passionate about it, because why would you put yourself through it, really? Unless you loved theatre and you loved the craft and you wanted to excel.
Which for them, I think, makes them more willing to sort of seeing that if someone that you're employing sees that you've been through NIDA, they also feel there's a connection there. So if they were to join the team, there's sort of half the work's done in some ways, and that you can just sort of spring forward from there and sort of know that there's kind of a common background, which often makes the work easier and more efficient, or, just cleaner.
It's an immediate bond. Yeah.
We're hearing a little bit about sort of forging and the challenges of the course. We don't shy away from the fact that it's an intense course, and it does involve a lot of hours and those things. But I would hope also that it's an enjoyable course. What things did you enjoy the most about your time at NIDA?
I'd have to say the people, and doing a large amount of shows and being able to do every department in every show, even if you didn't like doing it, you still, I think the people would probably be the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. And it just felt wild at some point. You're really trying to learn as much as you can, and it's sort of, you're constantly inspired because you think, how do we solve this? So you're constantly problem solving, and it's enjoyable, and there's so much. Like, I would just laugh and laugh and laugh because it's, it's theatre, it's play, it's fun. There's costumes, there's lights, there's sets, there's, you're not working in a bank, no offense to bank workers, but it's live and active and fun. And great parties from my memory as well.
Yeah, and I think what's also great is the resources, what you have from the people who come through in regards to guest lecturers or to the actual full-time lecturers who are available for you, as well as, not to mention being the technical theatre course, what resources you have to be able to use and develop your craft, and whatever that is, that is fantastic as well.
I just want to talk a little bit now about the industry. Yeah, and I'm thinking back to, when you first left NIDA, what surprised you most about the industry when you actually sort of started to make a career in it?
I would say how interwoven it is. It's quite a small industry in some ways. I mean, there's lots of little pockets. For example, we've spoken about there's theatre, there's events, there's film and television. They're all kind of rather varied, but they're all kind of interwoven. There's a common ground through there, which means that you can use that third year as a comment, sort of meet people and join the dots, and try and pave a way for yourself. You don't need to know yet what you want to do necessarily until you get out and sort of start working with people, because they'll often sort of see things in you that you might not have seen yet, and you'll have been nurtured by the lecturers at the course over those 3 years to kind of find that calling for you. But I would say it was all really interwoven, and it kind of meant that you kind of got a job, and then that job finished and there was a new job, and then that kind of path continued.
Anybody else with a surprise when they sort of got in the industry? Anything that surprised them?
No, I think NIDA really sets you up to know exactly what you're going to get into and what the industry is. And if anything, for the first year or two, I found it easier than being at NIDA because the workload wasn't as big.
For sure.
It's true.
So it was like, oh, okay, I can do this.
I think for like freelancers, like freelance designers like Trudy and myself, I think what's great is there's no real career structure when you leave in regards to if you go into a 9-to-5 job, you become, an assistant manager, and then you work up, and then all of a sudden you are running the business. Whereas for us, you can be running into landing a main show, or you're having to work through the fringe sector and start to make your name, or then, you can be jumping in and contacting professional designers who have been doing this for 20 plus years or so, and then jumping in as their assistant or associate, and then jumping on their projects and helping them out. So what's great is, you can be doing a whole range of things, from either, working from, a theatre company or being freelance. So there's a number of avenues when you walk away from graduating what your path is, and that's also an exciting thing as well.
For sure.
I was surprised that it wasn't. I thought it would be harder to find work, but it just what you're saying, Julie, it sort of sparked another one, sparked another one, sparked another one. So because you've got such a rounded training, you can do events to sort of plug any holes, and then that gets momentum, and then you might do a few more that you meet that other person, and then that's your network started. So it wasn't like there was a big lull or a gap year while you were trying to make these connections post graduation. You do maybe a few little events while you're in third year just for a bit of cash, and then they just flow through to actual work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm noticing a chat from Cameron who's saying, how long was it before are we allowed to do chats?
Yeah.
How long was it before we were employed in the industry? Well, I think we've kind of answered that in the last year of NIDA. You go out on secondment, you meet people who can give you jobs. So you're basically working really from your last year at NIDA, and that just, as Georgia says, just kind of compounds and goes on and on and on. So, I've never been unemployed since graduating.
That's amazing, Trudy.
Yeah, except for now. For the first time in decades, I'm unemployed because of COVID-19.
Well, it took a pandemic.
Yeah, right. For those of us and the new students that are coming into this, it's a pretty daunting task to have to know that you need to be working by the end of third year. That's a pretty relatable worry, I think, for a lot of people. However, you want to use that third year, a whole 12 months, if not more, to meet people that might be able to give you work. And it's not just about pandering to them to give you a job. You want to show them what you can do. You want to see what they can sort of offer in return and make it a dialogue. And it's about knowing that year is about meeting and professional development. It's not just about begging for work. People will see what you can do, and vice versa. So if you go into that third year with that kind of approach, there's a really high chance that you'll leave that third year with career opportunities right then and there. It's not like you have a 3-year gap where you need to go and do barista work for 3 years. If you hit the ground running, get that third year, smash it out, meet people, it's a really strong chance of some strong work at the end of that third year.
I guess just building on that, do any of you remember what the placements were that you did, or the secondments that you did in your final year?
Yep.
For me, I went over, as I said, I kind of jumped over to London. So I was at the National Theatre over there, and then I jumped onto the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, which I've been doing ever since for 3 years now, which was meant to be my 4th year this year. And again, I worked with a quite a large musical sound designer named Gareth Owen, and we worked on the Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein over throughout the West End and throughout the UK. And again, a lot of those people I'm pulled back in and to help out and work, and I have a very strong relationship with the National Theatre, for example, and also the designer Seb Frost, who designs the Royal Military Tattoo. He brought me on as his associate for an inspector course, which toured all around the world. So they're the great things what you do get from your secondments. But on that, I would say with your secondments, aim high. Don't try and do big things. Try and do things that excite you, because at the end of the day, that's why you went to NIDA, and they're the things what you love. So that's why.
That's a good chance, I think, too. You might agree, Julian, that you want to kind of use that as a testing ground. So I did a musical theatre secondment, an events secondment, and a TV secondment. And I just wanted to see what they were like, because I just hadn't been in those worlds before, because I had come out of high school, I had a gap year, I'd gone and done a ski instructor course, and I was not at all in a theatre space. So I just wanted to sort of see what was out there. So I love the kids' TV thing, but that wasn't so much work there. But I had the events background too that I could go back to. But the theatre thing was where I found my passion, and that's kind of how I got a job, and it's all gone from there. So the 3rd year, as well as aiming high, you want to make sure you test out different pockets, I think.
Mine was, I'm aging myself here, but I did the Olympics, Sydney Olympics, and Sydney Theatre Company. And both of those lent to work and future career. I mean, I was then at Sydney Theatre Company for, over a decade.
Amazing.
And also, weirdly, on my secondment there, Jackie Weaver was in the show, and I'm working with her now. So it's in the start of a relationship from 4 years ago. So great.
It's 2002, right?
2001, yeah.
All right, okay.
There's a question in the chat that's sort of saying, did any of you live in shared housing or campus living? Like when you were at NIDA, where did you live? What was it like?
I had the best time. I basically shared a house with 6 other NIDA students in Riley Street in Surrey Hills, and it was honestly the best time I've ever had.
Nice.
It was fantastic. It was fabulous, and still those people are my best friends to this day. It was great because we weren't on campus. We did live next door to the head of technical production of NIDA, Ian Cooksley, at the time, which was a little difficult at times.
How bizarre.
And wasn't that bizarre? It was bizarre. But anyway, yeah, it was the best time. So I would, live off campus, live in shared housing. You'll learn an incredible amount and make the most amazing friends.
I lived at home, so Mum could cook for me, but that's my story.
Georgia and Julian, did you live on campus?
No, I lived at home, and then I lived with some mates over on the north. But they were outside NIDA in the industry, which is sometimes good as well. Like I think if you're especially Sydney based, it's probably good if you can because it's so much time with your NIDA family and contact hours that if you can, it's still good to try and keep up friendships outside. Even it out a bit.
I agree with that for sure. Bit of balance.
Julian, you moved from Brisbane down to join us. What was that move like? Oh, I think we've just lost Julian.
Oh,
okay.
Loved it so much.
What thought of that?
Didn't like the question. It was time to go. I'm sure he'll come back and join us in just a second. There is another question in the chat, which is, what are some of the most memorable projects you've worked on? And I'm assuming this is during your career. So during your career, what are the most memorable projects that you've worked on?
I can't cover all of them in a weird way.
Yeah. I've done some interesting projects that you wouldn't normally associate with our kind of industry. I did a great project in Moscow where we projected on Moscow University, and it was the biggest video mapping at that time. It was only about, it was 10 years ago actually. And 3 million people came to watch it. It was just incredible. It was so big that they had to have fake ambulances to get us to work and get us back, because it was the only way to transport us was in these ambulances with the sirens going. But that was incredible. Just visually the most stunning thing I've ever done. And working in Moscow. Wow.
Yeah, yes.
Incredible. So
I don't know. For mine.
Well, you know what? I'll jump in. For me, the most memorable ones are like the Helpman Awards and like charity events and things for the industry. It's been great to have, you know, a pretty lucky career working as an SM continuously. But for me, the best bits of working, like the Helpman Awards are an absolute hoot. That is the most obscenely long day, and that's live broadcast. You just sort of not really sure what's going on. But those events are really great, and it's a real showcase of the industry, and you get to meet a lot of people and see a lot of familiar faces as they come through. But, you know, there's that. There's also, we travelled to Singapore and lived in Singapore for 5 months, and then Seoul in Korea for 5 months, which was just for work. But what you do when you're not at work is you go and travel an entire country and see an entire country. And that kind of platform to be paid to travel for 5 months is like the greatest gift.
Yeah.
So
I've been lucky to work all around the world, Europe and US and Asia and Middle East, and I always tack on a holiday before or after. So seen a lot of the world, and that's basically courtesy of work. It's great.
Yeah, me too, which is something I never thought of when I auditioned for NIDA. It didn't even enter my mind that it could open you for touring for the entire world. Like you can get to see on someone else's dime, you can get to travel.
Totally, yeah.
And you've all worked at some point internationally. You've all toured internationally, haven't you?
Yeah.
But what are some of the places that you've been to?
I've had a West End debut, so I've done West End. I've had Broadway shows on Broadway. I work a lot in the Middle East, in Doha, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, all throughout Asia. Name a country. China's the worst. Never ever work in China. New Zealand.
Controversial, Trudy.
Everywhere. Yeah, basically everywhere. It's been great. Norway, thank you. Yeah, Norway. I did a great, amazing arena show in Norway a couple of years ago. That was an incredible. Oh, there's got my 3 dogs. Incredible experience. Yeah, so it's great, and you have to learn new languages. You know, everyone speaks English, but not everybody speaks technical theatre English. So it's a real challenge, but it's lots of fun.
Georgia and Alex, what sort of places have you been travelling to overseas?
We've done New York, DC, Vienna, Paris, London, Recklinghausen in Germany a couple of times.
I seem to remember I was with you on one of those trips.
You certainly were. You certainly were. But it's just incredible. It's just a incredible opportunity, and it's so fun. Like on tour is when you, same as when you're training at night, you really double down with your friendships with people on shows because you're working around the clock together, eat, sleep. Walk around the city together. So you have these connections then with your cast and crew and touring company that they are also another network that you have for life. So you might not see people who were on that show for 5 years. And then when you see them again in a foyer or you bump into them in on another gig, it's just in the meet, you just pick up from where you've left off because it's such a wild experience. It's a lot of fun.
And for those, sometimes the contract is in Australia, but I've had this fortuitous timing where I've been able to travel to Toronto or London and New York to learn shows and then come back ready to mount a production in Australia. It's quite common for Australia and the musical theatre world to have an overseas production that's sort of licensed to us, and then they like to get some sort of people over there to learn how the show currently runs, just to make the mounting of the show here in Australia a little more smooth. Which is a pretty cool gig, just being shot off to New York for a week and hang out with someone else's show for a while. That kind of travel is pretty good too.
I just did that in New York in January to see Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish.
Oh, cool.
I was there for 48 hours, so it took me longer to get there than I was in New York. But that happens quite often, so I do that like three times a year maybe.
Can I just say, Graham, I've just seen a little question from Claire. When you're preparing for NIDA, what experience do you have? What advice would you give people who are currently in high school who wish to apply for NIDA? I'd just say absolutely go for it, because I went to a school where the careers coordinator wasn't that keen on me trying out for NIDA.
Common.
And suggested perhaps more of a stable, conservative career path. And I just thought it was rubbish. So I went, and she wouldn't give me the pamphlet. There was one. She said, "We've only got one." Give it to me. But you just go for it, And when I auditioned, I didn't get in the first time because I was 17. And the head of course at times said, go and travel or go and do some stuff to get your life experience up a little bit and come back when you're 18. And I wasn't disheartened by that at all. It was really great. I had a fabulous gap year that I went to London and backpacked around. So, and then I was doubling down on wanting to get in. It was great. But you just absolutely have to go for it.
I was exactly the same. I applied straight out of school at 17 and didn't get in. Took a year off. Applied the next year and got in. But yeah, you don't. If you know it's your passion and what you want to do, go for it. You don't have to have a great deal of experience. You've done some shows, that that's what you want to do, then do it.
If there's anyone out there who's not at school and who's working in another industry and who's going, oh my God, I want to get out. If there's someone to go into the arts, well, that was me. I was working for Coles Supermarkets as a manager through there, and again, I did not like it, and I did not want to be stuck packing fruit and vegetables until I was 50. I wanted to have an exciting life in the arts. So, I applied for NIDA and, got in. Thank you to Graham. Yes.
I think Betty's question is actually really interesting. Betty's asking, how do you find balancing NIDA and personal life? I think that's a hugely important question that a lot of us struggle with in this industry. I'm probably going to pass it over to Alex, who's just got a 6-day-old newborn, to kind of answer that.
It's tricky because, finding balance is really important, and it's really important for mental health. And that's a really recent conversation that we kind of have been more aware of in the most recent years. And it's something that I take really, really seriously. And what we try and do is ensure that people can have work-life balance. Now, it's not just a cliche catchphrase. It's actually really important, and it makes for better work. So it's a bit tricky to find it, to be honest, at university, because it's a really intense couple of years. That's not to say there isn't time off. Of course there is. But you just have to see how it plays out for you. There's so many avenues, like Julian said, and we've touched on throughout this so far, that you can find a platform that does suit you to a balanced life. So I work at Harry Potter. We do 8 shows per week, Wednesday through Sunday. And my wife and I have found a routine that kind of makes that work for us. We've had 2 children. So it's definitely possible. It just is not the cookie cutter that you might think works. 9 to 5 isn't the only option. It's different, and it's sometimes tricky, but it's definitely worth the effort. There's definitely the option to maintain good work-life balance, especially with a good producing company or kind of approach to your own work-life balance.
I think it's incredibly hard too, because of the amount of hours that you do away from home. When you're in production week, you do 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. So you need a partner who understands that work or is in the industry. I think it's very, very hard, especially to juggle those two things.
Yeah, and I was going to say as well, I think for a lot of us, we are all workaholics and perfectionists, whereas for my life, you would be in rehearsals and you would, get the idea and you'll be working and then you'll come home. And for me, I'm always drawn back to the piano and making scores or making sounds and all that. And, you're always constantly, working, you're always constantly, going to that next meeting or onto that next flight or whatever. But I think that's the joys of what we do, because it's like what we've been saying, it's not that standard 9-to-5 job where you work in a bank. It is something what you do because you have a love and you desire working in the arts. And for me, it's kind of like this drug is the best way of putting it, because once you do one show, you're itching to do the next and you're always wanting to know what's coming up and you want to do more and more and more. So, yeah.
Well said.
There's a question in the chat which is about someone who's been working in healthcare for 10 years but has a burning desire to work in live production and theatre, and how can we recommend they start? The short version is to just dive in. Now, I realise that if you're working full time, that time is difficult, but as a starting point, things like amateur theatre societies, amateur musical societies, anything like that you can kind of get a foot in the door to just try some work, make sure that it really is for you, is a really good idea. Equally, in terms of coming and studying the course, we look for a passion, but we actually always understand that some people's, everyone's life circumstances are different. So people will have had more access to places they can work, either due to life circumstances, where they're based, all those sort of things. And we take that into consideration. We just look underneath for the genuine sort of driving passion to work in the arts. So what I would say is look out for things like amateur theatre societies, amateur musical societies, things like that, where you can just volunteer, say, hey, I want to do a show with you, or I want to help behind the scenes. They tend to be fairly flexible in those sort of volunteer environments that they encourage people to get involved. There's another question there that I'll just quickly answer, which is how do you support students that are travelling interstate to study? In terms of supports at NIDA, NIDA students are eligible for all the sort of government supports that people normally get. So fee help people get, but also students who are eligible for Centrelink and those sort of things, students can get that as well. Internally in NIDA as well, we also have a system called bursaries. Bursaries where supporters of NIDA, philanthropists, have given us a sort of pool of money to give to students who are most financially in need. So in those circumstances, there are sort of small, it's not a huge amount of money, it's a little bit of money just to help people to sort of continue with the, cover living expenses and those things. But there are some other supports that come through. Julian, I know that you moved from interstate to join us at NIDA. I was sort of starting to ask this question before when we lost you off the call. What was that process like for you?
What was the question again? Sorry.
What was the process of moving interstate to sort of come to NIDA like for you in terms of actually sort of relocating?
Oh, right. It was an exciting, move. For me, for my previous background before going into NIDA, I was used to, working throughout Australia. So the move wasn't daunting or anything, but like all things, it can be also challenging because you are going into Sydney where you might not know, huge amounts of people and everything. So that all comes with everything, no matter what. But like all things, I was very lucky because I had a family member living in Sydney, so I was able to jump in and live with them for a bit. And so I kind of had that little bit of family network there. But like all things, it was an exciting, challenging move. And, that's what it all is. At the end of the day, you go to NIDA and it's all exciting and challenging. So, yes.
Yeah, I found the same. I only moved from Canberra to Sydney, but it was still, a big move at the age of 18. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to NIDA, what you call a bursary these days, from the Gallery of First NIDAs. I don't even know if they still exist anymore, but My father didn't want to support me to go to NIDA because he didn't think it was a proper career. So I got financial assistance from NIDA, moved from Canberra to Sydney and moved straight into a group house and had the best time. Right.
Just got to pick up on that, Trudy. That's I had sort of had the opposite with my dad when all these other people were saying to find a vocation that was a proper job. My father was sort of chastised, saying, because he was very supportive of it, and all these people that said she'll never work, she'll never get a gig, are the same people that when we were doing Uncle Vanya or all these shows
ticket.
Sold out, couldn't get it. Yeah, they're saying to him, "Do you reckon she could get us a ticket now?"
Sucked in.
That's right.
Totally.
I'm getting a message to say that we need to wrap up our session. But I just want to start with saying thank you very much to all the panelists. So Georgia, Alex, Trudy and Julian, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really wonderful to hear from you and hear about your careers. And I hope that it's given our audience a bit of a sense of sort of what they can expect from NIDA, but what also they can expect from a career post-NIDA, and maybe answered a few of their questions. There is a question I'll quickly address that's in the chat, which is, do you recommend studying shorter vocational courses before applying for this one? What I'll say about that is that what we look for when we're looking for an applicant is evidence of a passion and a desire to work in the arts. You don't have to have done a shorter or vocational course. It's not essential. But if you have done something like that, it absolutely then becomes part of that evidence. It starts to show that you have a bit of an understanding of what you're walking into, and having some prior training before you get to it does help you initially in that first year, although we'll absolutely teach you everything you know if you don't have it. Thank you once again to our panelists. I really appreciate the time to chat. It's really wonderful to see your faces, especially during this time where we're all a little bit more distant from each other. It's wonderful to connect. Thank you very much to all of our panelists, everyone behind the scenes who's been helping us today. I hope to see some of the people in the audience as applicants very shortly.
Do it.
Thanks very much. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.